Can you buy real estate with a credit card? Heck yeah, you can. In this episode, I'm going to talk to you about how I did my first 100 houses using credit cards and how I launched a career that lasted over 2 decades and counting. I'm Mitch Stephen, and I've been investing in houses for over 2 decades. I bought my first 100 houses using credit cards because no one knew me, no one believed in me, and no one wanted to give me a loan. So it was a natural step. It's not traditional, but I went with it 100%, and I launched a career that's lasted over 2 decades and counting. So stay tuned because I'm going to tell you exactly how I did it. First of all, and most obvious, if you don't have good credit, this is probably not going to work because you probably don't have any credit cards at this point. But if you have a 720 credit score or better, it's not too hard to get a lot of different credit cards with a lot of different very viable options. I especially liked credit cards that were 0% interest and introductory offers with no payments due for 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months. That meant as long as I could consummate my deal and get in and out within that time frame, I actually owed no money for the money I borrowed off my credit cards. So let's talk about the time and the era when I bought my first 100 houses on credit cards. You might guess by now that it is a different time, but back in those days, if you had good credit, you could write to any credit card company, and if they ran your credit and you had good credit, then they'd just send you their card with all their maximum cash advance limits. I mean, there was nothing to it. I recognized that dynamic, and I sent off for every card I could get my hands on. I ended up with about 45 credit cards, and if I totaled up the cash advance limits that I could get off of each card and put in the middle of a kitchen table, I could get about $500,000 on my kitchen table in cash advances off of credit cards. Now, they don't do it like that today because they're always checking as to how much available credit you can get your hands on. Because apparently, during that time, people did get the $500,000 on their kitchen table, and then they left town and didn't pay anybody back. And so they had to get more stringent on how they do it. But during the time when they were running a little looser, I was one credit card borrowing son of a gun. It almost cost me a divorce. I had bought about $500,000 worth of houses using $250,000 worth of credit card advances. I knew my wife was not going to be really particularly thrilled about that. I knew if I asked her if I could that the answer was no. And there was no way for me to educate her in time for her to understand why it wasn't a gamble or a bad idea. So I just did it on my own, thinking I would just find the credit card bills ahead of time before she found them and handle them myself. Well, as you learn, I was only married for about a month when this was going on. Quickly learned that you don't get anything past your wife, and she caught me with the credit card debt, and it was about to get a divorce when I talked to her right as she had her bags packed and said, I learned a lot of things during this conversation. I learned how not to talk to women, for one, because she was getting ready to leave, and I told her she was being irrational, and if she just listened to me for a minute, I could straighten this whole thing out. And so that didn't go over well. She looked at her watch and she said, okay, ready, go. And she gave me 60 seconds to explain. And so this is how I explained it to her. I said, honey, you think I'm gambling with our credit cards. And I'm not gambling one iota because I know what these houses are worth that I bought with them. But let's put it in your context. You're still not handling this the way you probably should because you're a little mad at me right now and you're not thinking straight. So what you're doing is you're saying that I'm gambling. So I'll put it in that text. I've got $250,000 of our money up at a poker game, and we're playing 5-card draw, and I'm supposed to get 3 cards from the dealer, and you found out that I got $250 on the table, and now you're leaving. What if I win? You can leave when I lose. What if I win? Shouldn't you stay around to see if I win or not, or if I know what I'm talking about? I think I would stay to see if I win, because if I win, we're going to be a lot wealthier than we were the day before. So she got out of the car and decided to stay, and I did win. I did have $500,000 worth of houses that I occupied because I put $250,000 on credit cards. And I did sell them and I did make the money. And I've been married 30 years come next month. So it worked out okay. Using credit cards, it's not traditional. Most people put credit card debt in a category that says credit card debt is bad. Some people say all kinds of debt is bad. I think I want to take from the master or somebody that we all know, Kiyosaki. We read that Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You know, he's the guy that said there's good debt and there's bad debt, and good debt makes more than it costs. And so I had read that book, and I was going through all those exercises in my mind, sizing up before I even decided to do these routines with credit cards. Is it bad to have $250,000 worth of credit card debt if you use that credit card debt to buy $500,000 worth of houses? I don't think so. Is that a gamble? Not really. It's a highly, highly calculated risk, but it's not a gamble. What's the chances that houses are going to decrease in value overnight 50%? Overnight. That would take almost a cataclysmic or astronomical problem, short of a meteor hitting the globe, So I think we can use credit cards. In this day and age, houses aren't quite as cheap. When I was buying houses, I could buy a house in downtown San Antonio for $15,000, $20,000, and I could fix it up for $10,000. So I could get $10,000 off of this card, $10,000 off this card, go buy the house. I get $10,000 off this card, go fix the house, and then I could go seller finance the house for $60,000 with 10% down, and then I could sell the note and get another 83% of whatever the note was worth. Anyways, I'd end up making $27,000 on these houses within 60 days. A lot of these cards were 0% interest or no payments for 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. So I didn't even have to make any payments on these cards or any interest on these cards. So it made perfect sense. I went and did it. Today, houses are more expensive, but you can still use credit cards in very creative ways. You can use them for down payments. You can use them to do all of your rehabs. Think about it. If you're an investor out there right now and you're rehabbing a house a month, that's 12 houses, and you're rehabbing houses for $15,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 rehabs each house. Well, you can just put those on 0% introductory offer credit cards and not have to pay any interest and not have to pay anything to get that rehab done. And then when you flip the house, you simply pay everyone you owe, including the credit card company. You call them up and ask them how much you owe on the credit card. You pay them with the money from the proceeds of the sale, and you get to keep what's left over. One of the most important things I did, or the most clever things I did, was whenever I used a credit card for a house, I put that credit card, I taped it inside the folder for that house. If I put $1 on a credit card for a house, that was the only house that I would take money from off that credit card. So I might have the whole $10,000 on this credit card in there. I might have the whole $10,000 on this credit card in there. And then I might have had $10,000 worth of available credit on this card, but I only needed $3,000 for the rehab. But it still went inside the folder because I didn't want to have all different kinds of houses commingling and mixing up with all different kinds of cards. I didn't want to get confused. It was real simple. When I sold that house, I got 100% of the money from the sale because there were no liens on that house because I bought it with credit card money. And so all I had to do, once I got the money from the sale and put it in my bank, I just call my wife and say, honey, we sold this house on 123 Main Street. We got $60,000 in the bank right now. You need to get in that folder, pull out all the credit cards that are taped into the front cover, call them up, find out what the payoffs are, and send them a check immediately overnight. And then I need to know how much those credit cards cost me, because when I subtract that amount from my $60,000, we'll know how much I made. And that's what we did over and over and over again for 100 houses. And actually, that's what got me into my banking relations. You see, one time I was going into my bank to get some credit card advances. I didn't know it, but the CEO of that bank was my high school quarterback, my old high school quarterback. It had been 25 years since I'd seen him. I had no idea. So I was going to get these cards, this money off my credit cards, and the teller there said that I needed to come back to the back and walk on the carpet because the CEO of the bank wanted to talk to me. I didn't know who the CEO of the bank was, but I said yes. I walked through the little swinging door. I walked on the carpet. I sat down in the chair. I picked up the phone, and a voice from the other side said, Mr. Stephen, this is a perfectly legal transaction that you're trying to do here, but it is a little untypical. So may I please verify who you are before we let this cash advance money go from these credit cards? And I said, certainly, and I appreciate the security check, and I appreciate what you're doing. What would you like to know? So this stranger on the other end of the phone says, who did you play football for? I thought, that's a pretty odd security question. I said, John Marshall Fighting Rams. He said, what position did you play? I said, I was the best tailback they ever had. He said, now I'm laughing because I don't know who this is, but obviously this is not a regular security check. And I'm laughing, and he goes, who was the best quarterback they ever had? And I looked at the phone and I said, Steve, who the heck made you CEO of a bank? And he said, Stephen, who the heck gave you $30,000 worth of unsecured credit cards? And we had a big laugh, and he let the advance go through. But then he said one thing to me that kind of got my angst. He said, what are you doing with this money? I said, I'm buying houses with it. He said, oh, this is a down payment for a house. I'm thinking, no, it's not a down payment for a house. This is the two different worlds we live in. This is not $30,000 for a down payment on a house. This is the whole house and the rehab. He said, well, I hope you know what you're doing. And there's where the angst came in. You see, we were competitors on the field, and that competitive spirit still is always with us. So I hung up the phone and I said, you know what? I'm going to show that son of a gun what I'm doing. So I went to the office and I told the secretaries, I said, every time I buy a house, I want you to get a copy of the HUD. I want you to circle the purchase price at the bottom in red, and I want you to write in red at the top, acquisition. And then when I sell a house, I want you to get the HUD from the sale, and I want you to circle the sales price in green, and I want you to write in green, sale. And then I want you to staple them together. I want you to put them in an envelope, and I want you to send them to the closest IBC bank and say, attention, Steve, and if he's the CEO down there, he'll get it. And that's what they did, about 18 houses in 1 month. They did that. So Steve was seeing these $20,000 purchase prices and these $60,000 sales prices. You know, I was you couldn't see the rehab in these numbers, but you could see the purchase price and you could see the sales price. And then after about 1 month, he called me down to the bank and said the bank wants to loan you a bunch of money. So starting with credit cards, it led to a banking relationship that has lasted over 27 years. All right. So if you have some credit cards, maybe you'll look at them a little bit different now. If you like this subject or you like how we're handling the topic of real estate investing today, please hit the subscribe button. If you'd like a free copy of my book, My Life in 1,000 Houses, Failing Forward to Financial Freedom, please go to 1000houses.com. Click on the free stuff tab, and then look for the offer that says free book. All they ask is that you pay for shipping and handling. I think it's like $7, and you'll get a free copy of this book. And because you're getting it direct from me, there'll be an autographed copy. It'll be autographed inside. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for everything. Please hit that like button. Please hit that like button. I appreciate you. Bye now.